Hey, what's up, boys and girls? Pat O'Neill here, back with part 2 of our limited review for set 7 for the Dragon Ball Super card game. If you guys missed the red cards, which we did last time, I will link them down in the description below. The purpose of this video is basically to give you an overview of all the cards in the set so that you know what cards are the best to use in limited specifically. This is largely for most of you going to pertain to your set 7 pre-release, which should be scheduled not this weekend but next weekend. So with that out of the way, let us jump right into the grading scale for the guys who don't remember or did not watch the last video. So this is the scale I use to grade everything on. It's a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being the absolute worst. 10 is basically an unstoppable card. If you play it, you just auto-win. 9 is a card that when you play it, you most likely win. There's very few outs. 8 is a good card. It's basically a top-tier uncommon or common, or very good super rare. 7 is a middle-of-the-road rare or super rare, or pretty good common or uncommon. 6, low super rare or rare, mid uncommon or common. Basically, you want to shoot for 6 or higher. 5 is a baseline playable card. It's the bare minimum to make it into your deck, your 40 card deck for your pre-release. 4 is a filler card you most likely won't use. 3 is a card you're only going to use if you need it to fix energy, or just need like another 5k combo. 2 is an awful card that you'll pretty much only sideboard in the most narrow of situations, and 1 is literally unplayable in every single scenario. So with that out of the way, let us jump right into the blue cards. We're going to be talking about the leaders this time. There are basically 2 leaders in this set. For blue, there is a Son Goku and Vegeta, and on the backside it is a Vegito, as well as Goku Black and Zamasu. So let us jump right into this. So Vegito is, really good on his front side. He gets put in the situation where if you are low on life, you get the extra 5k on the front, which is really good defensively, and his activate main gets you a 20k and a 2-drop 20k and a 2-drop 15k that removes a guy, which is actually insane. That said, the backside is incredibly mediocre, and for that reason, I can only give Vegito a 7. Like, I would love to do something better with Vegito, but, his backside is so mediocre that it offsets the front side, and he doesn't really wrap up the game in the fashion like Gohan did in Red, so that's why I can't really give him a much higher mark than that. Next leader is Goku Black and Zamasu, and on the backside it is Fuse Zamasu. So, Zamasu is really hard to rate in limited for this set specifically, so I have to give him 2 specific ratings, one for sealed and one for draft. So this leader doesn't actually draw any cards whatsoever aside from any of the Zamasus and Goku Black Stripper. With 6 random packs, odds are you're not going to be opening enough to justify the leader, which is somewhere around 6 or 7 Goku Blacks and Zamasus for you to want to be able to play this leader. Because at that rate, you'll basically be you'll see 1 every single time you swing, so it's basically a guaranteed draw at that point. But yeah, since in sealed, it's very unlikely you will see that. And then in draft, where you have more flexibility, you can see that Goku Black and Zamasu cards are being passed to you, so you can just kind of hoard them and do, just build off of it that way. You can basically build a super consistent deck because you will be have like all the Goku Blacks and Zamasus at the table that everybody opens in the tournament. They will all be passed to you if you're the lucky individual that is in that seat. So yeah, it's really hard to recommend for sealed, which is what most pre-release tournaments are, for me to really recommend Zamasu. So that's why I'm going to give him a 4 in sealed. The only reason you should ever play this card in pre-release sealed is for his activate main on the back, which costs 1 to bounce a guy. Removal on a leader is really nice, but when you consider the leader doesn't draw, it's a 10k on the back when it attacks a leader card. Yeah, it's not good. You're never making it to 8 energy, by the way. That's not happening, not in this format. 6 is the absolute latest games ever go, so that's just super duper not happening. So yeah, for, like I said, sealed, it's a 4. You basically are only going to side him in because you can sideboard leaders in limit. You're going to sideboard this card in as your leader in games 2 and 3 if the game goes really late and your opponent's not playing an aggressive strategy and they're just trying to go play a go tall strategy, so you can just pay the 1 and keep bouncing guys. For draft, it is significantly better. Like I said, you will get a lot more cards and the leader can actually, consistently do what it's supposed to do. And for that reason, I'll give it a 7 in draft. It's not like way better, but at least it can actually do what it's meant to do, which is find the Gokus in black so that you can ramp up and potentially have a shot at getting the 4 damage off. Next up, we have a doozy of a 2-drop in Super Saiyan Blue Sun Goku the Sweeper. 2 cost for a 15k. Yes, it's double blue, which is a knock against the card, but 2 cost 15k is right on par with what we want. It actually replaces itself because it takes a life, and then it also bounces a battle card back to your opponent's hand. Yes, it's 4 or less, but almost everything that your opponent will be playing in these kinds of formats is 4 or less. So this is a pretty massive tempo swing for 2 energy. And this is basically exactly what we want in our 2-drop. And so for that reason, we're going to just give Goku an 8. He's really, really, really good for a 2-drop. And honestly, I would say he's probably Blue's best 2-drop in the entire format. So, next up, we have Saiyan Bloodline Sun Goku. So, as we previously established with Videl in the last video, cards that search top 3 are usually pretty bad in sealed and draft because you just don't have enough targets. That said, this is blue or yellow Saiyan, which there are significantly more targets for than Videl only getting either a Kid Trunks or a Goten. So it is a little bit better in that regard than Videl, but it's not too much better. In fact, it's pretty much going to be a baseline playable card. So for that reason, we're going to give Sun Goku, Saiyan Bloodline Sun Goku, a 5. He's like just barely playable just because he searches out generic Saiyans more so than anything else. Again, it's not as good as just drawing a random card off of something like Raditz like we discussed last time, because this card can actually whiff. Next up, we have Blue's Counterplay battle card, which is Undying Spirit Sun Goku. This is the blue card for the rare cycle of Counterplay battle cards that we seem to be getting. Excuse me. So 3-drop 15k is a pretty good rate, but the real kicker with this card is that it's essentially a 1-drop 15k if you get everything to go your way. It's not too hard to get at least 1 multicolored card in your energy area to reduce the cost of this card to 2. And then obviously it restands 1. But yeah, paying essentially 1 on your opponent's turn to get a 15k and bounce the battle card they just played back to their hand is super, super good. I'm going to end up giving Gohan a 7. Oop, there we go, yeah, 7. He could theoretically be an 8 or better. It would take me a little bit of testing with the, with Limited's format to see if it really is that good. But I want to err on the side of caution with this card because it does take a little bit more than the standard card to really get max value out of this. Like, if you have to pay 3 for this card, it's really good still, but it's not like insane because it's super telegraphed. And your opponent will basically know it's coming if you just pass a turn with 3 or more open. Which, again, since games usually end between 4 and 6, that's like you just didn't play anything at all on your turn. So, yeah, really, really good. But, again, I have a few reservations, which is why I'm going to give Gohan a 7. But I could see the case being made for him to be an 8. Next up, we have SS2 Trunks, Memories of the Past. So, as we've already previously discussed, 6 energy does not, it just doesn't happen. It's happened maybe like 3 or 4 times in my entire time playing Limited. And when it does go long, though, 30k Double Strike is pretty big and beefy for a 6-drop. And, he is a 1-cost 10k combo, which is something we haven't really talked about in most of my videos. But considering your deck is most likely 2s and 3s, you have a lot of 0-5s, so you are going to want to, have a couple cards that have 1-cost 10k combo, just so that way in the combo step you can actually get over like a hand dump if your opponent is just trying to shotgun you for the game. So having 1 or 2 of these is pretty good, and for that reason I'm going to basically give Trunks a 6, which is right where we in our grading scale where we talked about a 6 is like a lower end super rare. This is a playable low end super rare. You are most likely playing it for its 110k combo cost, and then if you manage to get to turn 6, he is a pretty big and beefy 30k Double Strike, which will close out the game for us. Move past the SPRs. Next up is Trunks fighting the Darkness. So this card is real good and real bad. So just off the bat, this card gets a 1 if you are not in blue-yellow. If you do not open a ton of blue-yellow, or you are drafting this set and you are not in the blue-yellow seat, like blue and yellow cards are not being, filtered into you, then you just pass this card straight up. If you are in blue-yellow, this card is significantly better, and there's a reason why I'm going to give this card an 8. And, normally I'm like, oh, well, it's a 1-drop, and then I have to discard a card. But then you get to search 2 cards, and the 2 cards you specifically get to search are arguably the 2 best 2-drops in the entire format. You get a yellow 20k vanilla, and then you also get a 2-drop 15k that draws you a card and removes a guy from the board. That is insane for a 1-drop. If you open this card and you are in blue-yellow and you have both those cards in your deck, jamming this card on turn 1 basically guarantees you have a stellar turn 2 and turn 3 play. And when you curve out Trunks into Vegeta into Goku, it's really hard, I feel like, for your opponent to win that game. So for that reason, top tier common right here, boys. If you're in that slot, it gets an 8. Next up, keeping in line with the sweeper line of cards, sorry, I am tongue-tied today, is Trunks the Sweeper. So when you play this guy, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards with 2 or less ignoring barrier and return it to its owner's hand. 2-drop 10k is slightly below the rate that we want. It's acceptable, but not great. However, it does remove a guy, and having 1 or 2 of these in a deck is never a bad thing. If you recall from Destroyer Kings in yellow, Yamcha is basically this same card. And that card, I gave that card a pretty high mark at around a 7 or an 8. This is slightly worse than that, but having 1 or 2 copies of a card like this that will provide a relevant body while also setting your opponent back is pretty nice for the most part. So for that reason, I'm going to give Trunks the Sweeper a 7. Don't go overboard on these. Don't play like a ton of them. 1 or 2 is just enough, and when you really need it to set your opponent back, it'll be there and it'll be super, super useful. Next up is Bulma saying farewell. This is just a slightly worse / better version of Goten Family of Justice from set 1. Obviously it doesn't kill the card, but it does bounce it, but it is it accomplishes a similar goal, much like the Trunks that we just talked about. Having 1 or 2 cards in your deck that is spot removal to set your opponent back is pretty good. And there are times where you will be on turn 3 and you will have to play a 2-drop because you just don't have any 3-drops. Like your deck is largely going to be 2-drops. So playing a 2-drop and then swinging with your leader and comboing a Bulma on turn 3, you could be doing a lot worse than that, and it is a pretty big tempo setback for your opponent, especially if you went first. So for that reason, I'm going to give Bulma a 7. Similar to Trunks, 1 or 2 of these in a deck tops. Do not overload it. I would hesitate to say even 2 is too many. Next up, it's a super combo. I'm not going to give the spiel that I give every video. It's a super combo. Next up, we have Whis the Regulator. Very similar to, I believe it was Coco from the red video. This card basically just is pure gas on turn 1. You drop this on turn 1, and you use it to fix your hand and draw those, 1 copy of your 20Ks, 2-drops that you happen to have opened, your 1 of secret rares, super rares, whatever have you, your bomb rares, anything that you only have 1 copy of in your deck. Whis just speeds you along to get you there, and he smooths out your curve really, really nicely. And for that reason, I'm going to give him an 8, similar to what I gave Coco in the last video. Gawasu. This is the blue version of Elder, very similar to the previous video where we talked about 2-drop 10k is a playable rate. It is not the best. I still think Trunks is a better 2-drop 10k, because for the most part this is a 2-drop 10k that we're not really using. The best use for Gawasu is, since you do not deck out in this format, comboing the card or playing the card. You basically get to stack the top 3 cards of your deck before you reshuffle with all of the really awesome cards that you have discarded throughout the game or have somehow ended up in your drop, whether that's through comboing or bursting or killed by an opponent's effect. So For that reason, just like we did with Elder, we're going to give him a 4. Honestly, I probably should give it a 5 because it is a playable card. It's just not like a super great card. I'm not super excited to slot this card into my 40 card deck. This is basically my 40th playable card, where I'm going to choose this only if I really need like a combination of a body, some combo power, and the energy. Next up is Almighty Duo over Zeno. Board wipes in this game are really good. Less so than in a game like Magic, where creatures can't attack this turn you play, and like you can't attack with battle cards immediately in Magic. So board sweepers aren't as good here, but when you are behind, this is the kind of card that will save your behind, like literally. Zero combo power really hurts this card a lot, honestly. I don't know why this card has zero combo power. I guess that's just to keep in line with the previous Zeno that we had. But yeah, this is a board wipe, and when you are behind, there is nothing better that you could possibly be playing in Limited when you are behind. It doesn't stay on board as an attacker, which kind of stinks, and 5 is quite a lot, but it does save your butt. So it gets a 7 from me. There are, better cards you could be playing, and again, it doesn't win you the game, but like having one of these as like a panic button is super, super awesome. Who would have thought Zeno has a button that's pretty good? Alright, next up is Vados 3-drop 30k. If you guys remember from the Destroyer Kings videos that I did when we talked about Limited, Deborah is the best card in Limited, period. He is 3-drop 30k at the common level. You will see more Deborahs than you will see any other super rares, and he has the same power as many of the super rares that you get. He's not unbeatable. It doesn't auto win you the game, but it puts you so far ahead. Your opponent basically has to also have something that is similar to Deborah, and this card is literally the same card with a different name. The fact that this, I'm pretty confident, is the only 30k in the format, at 3-drop, and it's in blue, basically assures that blue is the best color in Limited, straight up, just because of this card's existence. So for that reason, we're going to give Vados an 8. I wish I could give this a 9, but I reserve 9s for cards like Piercing SS2 Gohan, where the turn you play it, you just auto-win, unless your opponent just has a negate. Next up, we have Kale, Sister of Annihilation. This is very similar to Zeno, where this is kind of like a board wipe. It's actually a little bit better than Zeno, because 4-drop for a 20k is actually a pretty standard rate for what we want to pay for a 4-drop. And if you happen to have the other blue Kale, you can evolve into it and get the board wipe, which is really good. Unfortunately, it gets rid of your stuff as well. And the thing is, your opponent's stuff goes back to the hand, and yours just goes to the drop, which kind of stings because like you can't replay all of your stuff, and then your opponent can. So for that reason, I'm going to give Kale a 7. She is in some aspects a better card than Zeno, but the thing is, Zeno kind of removes them at an equal rate, where both players shuffle the cards back into their deck with Zeno, and that means that your opponent just can't replay any bombs that you got, or like if they had like a bunch of 2-drop 20ks, they can't just, like, if you bounce them with Kale, it might not be worth it still, because they might go into 5 energy and then just go 3-drop, 2-drop and kill you anyway. So Zeno is a better board wipe, but I would like to give Kale at least the 7, because it is kind of like a pseudo board wipe. And then on top of that, it is a 4-drop 20k, which is a relevant body. Next up, we have Kale, the Awakened Sister. Oh boy, 4-drop 20k critical is pushing it for what we want in a 4-drop. Like that's such a good card. You guys just don't understand how good that is. So critical is the strongest keyword in Limited. 20k critical is very difficult to block for the reasons we talked about with Trunks. You don't have that many 1-cost 10ks, so this card either gets in for damage, in which case they're not drawing it, or they're going to pay 2 cards every single time. It is also a 1-cost 10k, and it does have the ability to be tricked into play, I believe, earlier, right? Yeah. So when you can trick this card into play even earlier on turn 2, which makes it like a massive, massive beater, earlier than the energy cost suggests. And then when you play it, it chooses one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, even if it has indestructible and bounces it, like, so it's a tempo swing, a good sized body, the best keyword, and it has a relevant combo, Kale gets a 9. Like, this is one of the better super rares you can be opening because you can play it aggressively or late, like early on or late, and it's relevant. And again, it's just a massive tempo swing, and it's, you know, if you can protect Kale, if they don't have like hard removal for it, then she's going to snowball the game way out of control, and you're definitely going to win. Next up, we have Kale, Timid Sister. So when you play it, you get to pick up a blue or yellow Universe 6 card from your drop area with 3 or more and add it to your hand. That's super good. So you're not. This is a card you're not dropping on 1. This is a card you drop on like turn 4 to re-pick up your 3 drop that they just killed, or your super rare Kale, or you can just play it on 1 to try to set up this Kale play here. So Kale overall is just a really, really good 1-drop. I'm gonna give her a 7. Whoop, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're gonna give Kale a 7. She is very good because, again, for the previous things we talked about, the recycling. Recycling is super, super good. You normally only get like 1, maybe 2 copies of any given card. So when you have something that's like a 3-drop or a 4-drop or a super rare Kale or something like that, being able to pick it back up and present the threat immediately again is very backbreaking for a lot of people. Can't give it an 8 because it doesn't just by itself. It by itself is not inherently as good as a standard card like Goku or Vados. These other cards we talk about that are 8s. Okay, next up we have Goku Black, the Replicator. So this card, it's basically has, again, just like with all the Zamasu cards when we talked about the leader, it is baseline playable in every deck at 4 cost 20k. That is an okay rate. It is, I will slot it into the deck, but I won't be like super happy about it. Like, it's like just chaff to fill your deck with that you're pretty okay with. That said, if you are in Goku Black or Zamasu, this card is significantly better at an 8 because it gets you a relevant body, it gets you another attacker, or you could just pawn it off for extra combo power when pushing for a game. It gets rid of one of your opponent's battle cards, and then it potentially draws you a card. So this card does everything if you're in that leader. If you open 2 or 3 of these, I could actually see the case being made for you to want to play the Goku Black Zamasu leader in sealed. You just have to get really lucky. There's only 2 to 3 uncommons in any given pack, and there's usually like 20-ish uncommons in a set. So odds of you opening 3 of the same card in 6 packs, not super duper high. But again, in draft, Goku Black and Zamasu are much, much better. So, yeah. Whew. So, next up we have Goku Black, Inviting Darkness. 3-drop 10k if you're not in Zamasu. Horrible rate. We do not want to be paying that much for 10k, like, ever. It's really, really bad. If you're in Zamasu, though, it's a little bit better. Let me see where it is. Yeah, it's probably like, there we go. So there's the 6. Okay, sorry, guys, couldn't find the 6. It's a little bit better. 3-drop 10k, not a super great rate. And since this is not constructed, and we're not ramping into a big 10-drop or 8-drop consistently, there isn't really that much of a payoff besides the leader skill most of the time when you play this card. This card's also rare, so good luck actually opening multiple copies of these. Yeah, there's not really much to say. It's a lot better in Goku Black and Zamasu. Like, you could at least justifiably slot it in the deck because it's a ramp spell, but I'm still not super excited. Even if it was just a 3-cost 10k draws a card and it doesn't ramp you, it's still not like the greatest thing. Like, even if it doesn't ramp your opponent, I should say, it's still not the greatest thing that you could be playing for 3. Alright, next up we have Goku Black, Evil's Accomplice. So this card is baseline playable at a 2 for 10k. I guess you could argue it might even be a 4. It's very similar to Gawasu and Elder. It's kind of like in that spot. It just has the upside of being named Goku Black, which means if you open Mass Replication, it is significantly better. Somewhere between a 4 and a 6 based on whether or not you are in Goku Black and Zamasu, whether you're not in them, whether you have the field spell. There's a lot of factors, whether you're in draft or sealed. Very difficult card, honestly, for me to evaluate. But you can basically assume if you're not Goku Black and Zamasu, it's a 4 at worst and a 6 at best if you have literally you're on the right leader, you have the cards, you have the field spell. Alright, so now we move into the extra cards for blue. Betrayal of the Master is basically blue's version of, I think it's Family Kamehameha is the green one that kills something that is greater than or equal to your energy. This does not kill it, this just returns it to your opponent's hand. The odds of your opponent having a big beater that's above their energy and limited means that they opened a very specific super rare or a very specific, rare. And that to me screams a 2. It is a niche sideboard card that you will only play in these like rare situations where your opponent just happened to have a deck that contains a lot of that one thing that this card is designed to check. Definitely do not mainboard this card. Even if you needed energy, literally any blue battle card is better than slotting this card. Alright, so next up we have Mass Replication. So this is a field spell, straight up. If you're not in Zamasu, this is a 1, like straight up. Yeah, you have to be on that leader for it to even have any relevancy whatsoever. If you are on it, basically you get a free blocker, you get a free attack negate basically for each Goku Black you play throughout the game. Unfortunately, this is not constructed, so we can't play any of the Goku Blacks that already make shadow tokens. So you can't just be like, hey, I get 3 blockers for my 3-drop. So none of that there. Yeah, if you have like 5 or 6 targets for this card, it gets pretty good. It's probably about a 6. But again, this is only if you're going to end up opening somewhere between like 5 or 6 Goku Blacks in a smaller deck like that. Then it's worth your time because every turn you are getting a free negate. Because at the 5 or 6 mark, you're going to find a Goku Black pretty much every turn off of your leader skill, which translates into a free blocker. And I understand that like I prioritize defense very highly in limited, and you're probably like, well, Pat, why is this card not an 8? Well, the thing is, of the 3 Goku Blacks in the set that you could be drafting with Mass Replication, 2 of them are incredibly mediocre. So like you're just down dropping to get a blocker. Like you're just playing 2-drop 10Ks just to get free defense, and your leader doesn't actually pressure the opponent's leader at all. It's a 10K on the backside when swinging at a leader, and so you're burning through cards in your hand for those cards to actually pressure your opponent. So like I'm indifferent. I'm really happy that a card exists that will give me free blockers just for playing it, but it doesn't in any way help me win the game for the most part. Alright, so next up we have You're Wide Open. This is just Blue's version of Denial of Hope. Yes, Denial of Hope is better because it just straight up removes the card, and this card puts it back in their hand. But I'm still giving it an 8 anyway because of the massive tempo swing that this card makes. That was pretty much the reason why Denial of Hope was so good, is for the same reasons this are. If your opponent is basically expecting to play a card that will impact the board in any way, and you're wide open it, and you're already ahead on board, you can snowball the game even harder, and it will just put the game just in your favor, and you're most likely going to win. And last up is the blue negate that you can play from the drop. It's 2 negates for 1 cost. Defense is a premium in limited, and for that reason, All Too Easy gets an 8. This is even better than a standard negate just because when you open it and you actually have it in your deck, so you get 2 negates for 1 card. That's like unheard of. It just turns junk into your hand into a second negate. You can never have too many blockers, too many negates in limited. There's just it's so hard to defend your life. Anyone who's played in any of the sealed events or any of the draft events will tell you that the most reliable ways to protect your life or to get out of any situation are blockers, negates, and off-color super combos. Yes. Because you just don't have combo power and you just don't have draw power, and limited it just does not exist. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it for the mono blue cards. Check back next week when we are going to resume with the green cards. So probably the roadmap will look like Monday will be green, yellow will be on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday we'll do black and dual color, so that way we'll round out the week and you guys will be all ready to go for your Set 7 pre-releases next weekend. Not this weekend, but again, next weekend. I believe that is, I will get that date for you. It should be the weekend of the 27th is when most people are doing their pre-releases. So yeah, guys, as always, if you guys enjoyed this, be sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe to 3XG. As always, check out the Patreon if you are trying to level up your game even further. For those of you guys who are already patrons, I will be giving you guys a cheat sheet, not this Friday, but next Friday, just so you can kind of print it out and bring it with you on what the best commons are for each color, so you can kind of not have to spend 30 minutes like fumbling through your cards trying to remember everything from these kinds of videos. It'll just kind of give you like a rundown of what should be the best. Alright? So until next time, Scrub Fam, bye-bye-bye.